The Pirates finally have a generational pitcher in Paul Skenes. So why do so many national pundits seem to want the Pirates to trade him? That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. I want to spend this entire episode understanding why people think this makes sense and ultimately telling you why not only it doesn't, but it would be a gigantic mistake. The Pirates 2025 season has been a truly worst case scenario story. And when worst case scenario stories play out, people imagine doomsday preparations. There's been a groundswell of suggestions that the Pirates should trade Paul Skenes, and right now. Listen, no matter when the Pirates deal Paul Skenes, they won't win the deal. You don't win when you trade a player like that. Let's start by talking about the different kinds of people who suggest it. Let's start with the national baseball media, which is really the Los Angeles and New York baseball media. But regardless, let's pretend it's national. Their motivation, well, much like you, they see baseball as broken. They just don't see it broken in the same way you do. See, to them, great talents deserve to be on great teams, not just eventually, like what actually takes place in the game, but always. Teams like the Pirates, they don't deserve him, you see? And even if they did what was suggested and spent a little bit more, it wouldn't be enough. To them, teams like the Dodgers or Mets or Yankees, they're put together the way they are on the backs of their superior intellect and nothing more. See, if Bob Nutting were to spend $387 million next year, the market would surely grow to the point where it could support at least that for years to come. Reality is not on their side. But when you decide common sense solutions to actually try to fix the game are insane, you kind of have to accept insane things as provable truth. And it's extra easy because almost nobody will ever try it, except for the Padres, of course, and listen to how they get spoken of by this same group. Like they're just a cute kid wearing a cop uniform pretending they have actual authority. If they really wanted to try, they would have signed Ohtani. You know what I mean? How about an example from Jeff Passan at ESPN, one of my favorite captains of smug? It's not just Paul Skenes who deserves better. It's Pittsburgh Pirates fans who deserve better, Passan explains. They deserve a system that allows teams to keep great players. In some cases, guys will stay with small market teams. We've seen that. But what incentive does Paul Skenes have to extend with the Pirates when the Pirates haven't shown the willingness from Bob Nutting all the way down or the ability to bring in guys who are going to make this team better? Pirates haven't shown that they are worthy of Paul Skenes' extension at this point. See, the misguided belief here is that guys stay for anything other than money. Allow me to name the one example I can think of, Jose Ramirez. I think I'm done. Think Scooble is staying in Detroit even if they win the next two World Series? I don't. We do deserve a system that supports that, Jeff. Too bad you dismiss the fix as something that can never happen. Here's another one from him. The truth is, there are already teams that are going to ask about Paul Skenes at the trade deadline this year. I don't anticipate that he's going to be moved, but there's a real argument to be made. The best thing for the Pittsburgh Pirates would be to move Paul Skenes when he has his most value. It's depressing, really. It is depressing. And it's a depression that Pirates fans felt the moment he got drafted. You know why, Jeff? Because we've watched it play out over and over and over again. And we are smart enough to know that it's not just our owners' want to that gets in the way. We know that a guy like this is probably not ours to keep. Thank you for fully endorsing that we don't even get to play with him for the years that we get, though. I really appreciate that, Jeff. That's really looking out for us Pirates fans. Thanks so much, Jeff. No wonder ESPN does so great with sports coverage. Now, how about normal Pirates fans? This is typically from two classes of Pirates fans, if they're not trolls, who I'm not even going to bother with. Okay. First are the fans who don't really understand team control or how it escalates or how long it lasts. You know what I mean? These are people that get mad when you suggest trading a guy like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa because he's hitting 300 in that. But they simply have no understanding he becomes a free agent next year. Next up are the ones who genuinely feel this team is so poorly constructed, so far from any kind of meaningful contention that they either might as well or they see it as a one-stop shop to acquire everything that ails the team. Now, there's others, of course. I'm not trying to create buckets for every eventuality of Paul Skenes must be traded type person. Just most of them. Like, I don't care about the supermodels in New York that want Paul to move to New York City for Livy's career. That doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form, so I could care less that that's being talked about. But I am going to spend some time trying the best I can to explain why it's a terrible idea right now. And I'm going to start with my very best argument. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of the ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Gametime gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and as the Pirates regular season is coming up, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. In fact, my favorite time to use it is when I'm traveling. I just used it last year when I went to a San Francisco Giants game in San Francisco. It was a last minute idea, and lo and behold, I got some nice, really affordable tickets and a great seat at a ballpark I wasn't all that familiar with before. So really, really good service. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I promised you I'd come out of this with my best shot, and I'm coming out of it with my best shot. The only reason we think this team is close enough to fix is that Paul Skenes is on our team. Think about that for 5 seconds. Let's say, for the sake of argument, the Pirates didn't draft Paul Skenes, okay? In our little world, if you want me to Bob Ross this for you, they've either picked Cruz or someone else. Honestly, doesn't really matter too terribly much for this conversation because everyone else was inferior to Paul Skenes in that draft. Point is, this team doesn't have Paul Skenes. Instead, you're like 24/7 comping Jared Jones to Spencer Strider, trying to comfort yourself into thinking that you've got the makings of a great group. You're absolutely drooling over the upcoming prospect pitchers. If they picked Cruz, you probably have a new center fielder. So maybe the outfield feels a little bit more solidified. If they let him get here that fast, which I don't think is a guarantee, especially in this system. You'd probably still feel you have a lot of the same holes, though. Just instead of outfield, now you don't have this freak of an ace. Again, though, you do have that pitching coming. And Lord knows you better get some of it across the finish line. The one thing I can't control is your ability to truly imagine this feeling. Okay. Can you allow yourself to simply Thanos Paul Skenes out of this franchise? Can you do that? Can you gauntlet Paul Skenes out of this franchise and really think about it? It's hard to do. Look, we'd probably still be mad about the state of the team. We'd probably still have wanted Shelton fired. Charrington too. I know for sure we'd still want Nutting gone. Would we think we should be making a big deal? If so, would we have to add frontline starting pitcher? Think on it. Jones is hurt. Bubba might be ready. Keller is Keller. Heaney and Falter are still around. You got Carm going. You sure you would think the prospects are going to be enough? See, I think the only reason we think that launch pad of pitchers coming is so wipeout is because we have Paul Skenes. And look what happens. Yesterday, Hunter Barco gets pulled out of a game early. And all of a sudden, that ramp of pitchers took a gigantic hit, didn't it? That's all it takes. Look at what the Jones injury did to the beginning of this season and what we envisioned this rotation being, and it's performed pretty well. To me, no matter how hard I try, I can't see this team being surefire ready to win without him. Simply put, I think he's the reason this urgency shouldn't be just lip service. If you go ahead and get rid of him, what's your reason for urgency? Why is it so hellfire important? Is it Oneil Cruz now? Well, if it's Oneil Cruz, you've only got 3 more years with him. Think about it. Without Paul Skenes as part of the picture, you look at this team, you are not considering this something that immediately should be in any kind of playoff consideration. So if you trade him, does it not stand to reason that you would feel the exact same way? I'm going to talk in the third segment a little bit about the return that we could possibly be looking at for a Paul Skenes, how much I think it would take, what I think you could get. But before I do that, let's talk in generalities about that mythological package. You're talking about needing to fill starting pitcher because you've got to get a frontline starting pitcher. You'd have to do something like that. You'd have to still fill an outfield spot, probably. Okay? Even if you had a Dylan Cruz or whatever, you're going to have to get an outfielder back and somebody for today. Shortstop is a big hole until develop prospects come along or somebody grabs it up and starts hitting. But it isn't going to be IKF next year. It probably won't even be IKF to finish this year. And I'm not comfortable with Jared Triolo yet. Are you? I guess you could go with Nick Gonzalez. But I think you're always going to be left wanting a better shortstop if you go that route. I just don't. I think he can do it in a pinch. I might even do it this year just because I think he's better than IKF there. And if you eventually want to make room for like a Nick York or whatever, you're going to have to do something like that. You're going to have to open up the wickets and find a way to fit this in. But to me, you get rid of Paul Skenes, you get rid of the one reason why this team has a chance. In our history, we do not have a Pittsburgh Pirate Hall of Fame starting pitcher. We don't. I mean, that's sad. We've been around a really long time. We've had some good pitchers. Don't get me wrong. Candelaria was great. You know, Steve Blass was good for a time. Doug Drabeck was awesome. Rick Rhoden. It isn't like we haven't had any good pitchers. Ron Smiley, or not Ron Smiley. He's doing the weather. John Smiley. We've had some good pitchers. We haven't had any like this. Even Garrett Cole, not quite like this. Garrett Cole has grown into something. He's reached his potential. Paul Skenes came so overflowing with potential that he was already good when he got here. You didn't have to go through those 2 or 3 wasted years of trying to onboard the kid. In fact, the way he came in makes him one of the most impactful draft picks ever for this franchise because he's come in and hit the ground running. He's immediately one of the best pitchers in baseball, period. Not best rookies, best pitchers. And he takes care of the one thing that this team can absolutely never afford. A true, honest to God, front of the rotation ace that they have for 5 or 6 years. Those are the rules in baseball. That's what you get. It's up to you to make those 5 or 6 years with that player count. We could go off on a tangent about who needs to go to make sure that they make the most of this window with Paul Skenes. But if you trade him, there ain't no window. You're right back to like hoping that you can develop something that makes up for losing him. And folks, you can't. Bubba Chandler, some prospect hounds have literally said the words they think he could be better than Paul Skenes. They don't mean when he debuts. They mean by the time both of their careers are over, they can see a path where Bubba Chandler's ceiling is actually higher. That has to be seen. But I have never, in fact, I know this statistically speaking, baseball has never seen a pitcher come up and do what Paul Skenes did last year and what he is continuing to do this year. This is a special, special player. I don't believe you do yourself any favors as a franchise by cutting it short intentionally. There may come a day when we have to trade Paul Skenes. In fact, there probably will. But now is not the time. Otherwise, why are we doing drafts at all if good players are never supposed to come to bad teams? How are bad teams supposed to become good teams if good players don't come to them in the first place? Which is why there's supposed to be a draft. Which is why there's supposed to be an international signing period. You're supposed to be able to get talent. You're supposed to have certain advantages to get access to said talent that some of the bigger teams don't get because they have access you don't. That's baseball's system. The Dodgers can buy Paul Skenes in 5 years, but they probably aren't ever going to be in position to draft Paul Skenes. What a cross they have to bear. I feel so terrible for them. Trading Paul Skenes would be a gigantic mistake. How many times do we have to say it? Let's wrap today's show with trying to talk through what an appropriate package might actually be in return for Paul Skenes. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's the game winning shot or breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip off and live with player props, performance trends, and same game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. How could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to fanduel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. It's not that I don't believe an appropriate package exists out there for Paul Skenes, but I believe in it almost the way I believe in ghosts, okay? I can't disprove it, but I can certainly show you why it's weird to think that it's happening all around you, right? I can certainly say, I've got some questions about that. Right now, just my gut tells me there is no appropriate package for Paul Skenes. At this point, you'd be selling 5 years of them, 2 more of those dirt cheap, and then 3 years of progressively more expensive arbitration years. The obvious assumption is that whomever would acquire him would want to extend him. But we've already seen that not be the case twice for Juan Soto. The Pirates would have to ask for, in my mind, minimally 2 major league players. And I don't mean borderline. Let's go with the Mariners, okay? Because they have like 7 or 9 players in their top 100 lists, depending on who you look at. Well, my ask for Paul Skenes would start with something like Cal Raleigh. That's right. I'd make Seattle eat half of his $105 million contract that lasts through 2030 too. Why not? Then I'd go ahead and demand George Kirby, their young starter in arbitration. Now, after this is my problem. They've got a lot of top 100 players, but not many who are close to MLB. If I'm making moves like this, I need to have what I acquire affect my major league club within the time frame of the return. This is where the deal kind of falls apart for me. Maybe Kirby and Raleigh are enough for right now for you to pull the trigger. To me, I'm not sure I fixed enough of the holes I knew I had. Primarily because I had to use some of my capital to replace Skenes himself in the rotation. I can try other teams. The Dodgers could be a better fit, but the principle remains. It's a very difficult match to find equivalent value. And it all stems from trying to replace 5 years of Skenes. There's better ways to add. First things first, they really could spend more next year. They could solve a lot of their problems if they just toss a $10 or $15 million multi-year contract at an outfielder. And they may need to trade for a shortstop. That alone would change things pretty drastically. That said, I'm a Pirates fan, so let's try to do it another way. They could move a lesser pitcher like Keller or Falter, or even one of the prospects for what they need and not force headline starting pitcher into the conversation. Just by acting like a normal team, they could avoid doing something as painful as trading a phenom. And the literal only reason the baseball world looks in this direction, at least for now. I mean, so how could this play out, really? Here's the thing. If the Pirates don't perform some miracle and extend Paul, we'll be talking about trading him in 2028 or 2029. And yes, it'll be for less than these silly packages I just mentioned. But it could be easier to find a partner. And you could still easily use him to answer a question elsewhere. Hopefully backed by a rotation that has grown together and capable of absorbing the loss much more capably than they could right now. It will still hurt. You'll still lose the deal. But the hope is that in 4 or 5 years of Skenes, you can make all the puzzle pieces fit and get something out of it. Take him out of the equation now, and you might very well add talent. But you'll have to develop the staff, and that could take a couple years. For instance, Bubba Chandler, right this second, is baseball's number 2 prospect and top pitching prospect. Mitch Keller used to be up there too. It can go that way. And does a lot more often than it goes the way Paul has. Nobody has come on like Paul has. I caution you, if that's where you're picturing like Barco or Chandler or whomever, take a step back and realize that's simply not likely. I'm not predicting they'll suck. I'm just saying, don't be shocked if you don't see the best of Bubba for a year or two. The time is now to build on this team. Fill the holes and take advantage of the best gift this game could give a franchise, a stud, an irreplaceable generational talent. The moral of the story, I don't think it's smart to consider at the moment. I don't think a workable deal is out there. And I think it would be improving an aspect of the team while sacrificing what made the team even sniff special to begin with. Maybe the best way to put it, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. And in this case, a Paul Skenes in the hand has much more shot of making this a viable franchise that has a shot to win something than a franchise that doesn't have Paul Skenes. They can't and won't replace him. Not adequately. I just think that it's hurtful to me that the national media talks the way they do about this team. At the end of the day, this is Bob Nutting's doing. This is the way he's run this team. I very much so mean what I say when I give them the backing that they cannot do as much as some of these other teams. They can't. They just can't. Paul Skenes, for instance, if they want to extend him, it's not as though I don't believe that they could pay $30 million a year for one player. I think they could. And I think that he could almost on his own recoup that cost for the franchise. It's everything else that they won't be able to do if they do it. That's just the way it is in baseball. You can not believe them all you want. You can call them liars. You can read all these stories about how they're making money, but they're not talking about how it's being allocated. They're not talking about how those dollars are being put back into the team. Major League Baseball needs to change the structure of how revenue sharing dollars are spent. There's nothing illegal about what this team is doing. And Major League Baseball just lets it go. Because they have incentive to keep the small market people quiet. That's why the CBA is so contentious, because everybody knows that something needs done. Nobody has the stomach to actually do it. So we just keep having these same conversations over and over again. Every time the Pirates get a good player, I hear this. Garrett Cole, even when the Pirates were in the middle of that 3-game winning stretch last decade, people wanted Garrett Cole traded in 2014 because this team wasn't good enough to support him. When he was traded to Houston, ultimately, a full year or even 2 early, based on what I think they should have done, and they got the package they got back, which was Very underwhelming for how much control that kid still had. The national baseball media started out by praising the Pirates for doing the right thing by this great talent. And then the next day went about slapping them in the back of the head like DiNozzo on NCIS for doing something so foolish and not trying to win. So I ask Mr. Passan again, what do you want? Do you want the Pirates to try to win? Or do you want a star sent to a better team to make one of your agents happy? That's your source on every story you tell. I ask Mr. Passan, do you really want the game changed? Do you really believe that every team deserves to have the right to keep a great player? If so, why do you so constantly preach against any system that would help deliver that? Paul Skenes shouldn't go anywhere. Not yet. We shouldn't even be discussing it. And I'm sick to my stomach that I'm in a market where I have no choice to, because it was immediately thought of the second he put on the jersey on the draft stage. Welcome to small market baseball. If you don't got an iron stomach, get the hell out. It's going to be gross sometimes. This is one of those situations. I don't want to hear about it for another 4 years. Thank you for making Locked On Pirates your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and let's go Bucks.